Okay, good night, good night, good night, good night, and good night. Welcome to Black Marriage and Family. It is the weekly conversation show um, to talk about um, therapeutic things involving Black marriage and family. Um, I am your host, Dr. Ron, a mentor, educator, and therapist. We are getting started um, this new show to really advocate and gear towards understanding Black marriage and family therapy. Um, because I think that there is this large um, enthusiasm or excitement about therapy at this time, but sometimes the question is who's presenting that idea and who's presenting how therapy should be portrayed or presented, or how does it really fit for us and our families and our communities. And so I'm me, and I have quite a few associates that are not here. Hopefully they're coming on. If not, we'll work through this about how that operates and some actual um, eventually having some guests that come on to talk about these topics. One guest was hoping that would maybe come and join us tonight um, because I want to definitely at some point be able to facilitate and talk about her book. That's very, very um, idea into a concept that is so important to me. And someone I've been working with is the idea of platonic relationships and what does it mean for men and women who have platonic relationships, and how those relationships sometimes can be confused with romantic relationships because of us not maybe even having a good sense or a good understanding of how to differentiate the idea of mm, attraction from being romantic just to being platonic. And that's a that's a idea that I know a lot of people really would not even be interested in talking about. It's something that I might also even be a topic that's kind of difficult to even kind of have a good understanding of, or even to put into a play. But very often you can see those type of things happening and occurring in many ways in many communities. So I definitely, in many instances, is one of the first people who will um, talk about how that kind of operates and works and has been established for myself. I mean, I think that there's been multiple relationships where I may have, you know, been in that I was attracted to someone and found out it wasn't really romantic, and found out it was a lot more platonic, But I think that that comes in sometimes it comes in the concept of being able to understand and process what those kind of things mean in relationship and how you establish a relationship. So that's one place to really put in perspective. Um, I definitely will say if you have comments, questions, if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, please put your questions in. Definitely like, share, subscribe. I would love to be able to, really discuss those, some of those ideas, as well as more than anything, the experience of those phenomena. Because I think a lot of times we think that, you know, someone comes up with the idea of how these things occur, what it means for them to occur, and how it goes. Ultimately, what it really examines is the idea of what people experience in life as a systems-based therapist. I deal a lot about the system and in the system, what has happened in the system, how the system actually occurs, what's going on, not so much on what maybe some researcher has come up with a research about. I think that in research, you see a lot of times people are doing kind of like they'll say, "Oh yeah, we're doing a research, a blind study, or open study," but many times to get to a good example of individual things that affect people is sometimes doing case studies because you then get and experience the person in their own experience, and that is a way to really be able to examine how things are affecting people, how they may affect people, what may happen. Um, so I definitely will say um, there are so many um, right now as we see. And I don't know. I mean, I would love to go pull up clips and show you some of what I would consider some of the um, ne- I want to using the word negative is so simple, but I think the opportunists, a lot of opportunity content that is being made that ultimately results to being a problem for us as a community, as us as individuals, for us as couples, for us as families, for us as husband and wife, us as children and parents. And when we look at that type of content, um, I guess it is fun, it is entertaining, it is something you can say, "Oh yeah, I loved it. It was, oh man, that was so funny. I think that was right on point. Ooh." But I would also say that, in some sense, it also becomes something that can definitely become problematic for us in a way that if we don't find a way to, in many instances, I like to say, if we don't find a way to check that from our reality to what really is happening, then we will follow. We start to see art, rep, you say that life, art uh, representing life, but now we're seeing life representing art, and art is something that someone is creating that may not be true, may not be what we really follow. And now we're seeing that largely in the concept of reality TV and reality shows. I mean, I just put it out there. When you think of a show where they, you think I established a show, and that show is established to I don't know, to present people being something like they're hot chicks, I guess, baddie chicks, or whatever cruel and mean people are, top dudes, fighting for the love of somebody. You have all of these things, and then and this is all centered around, a lot of times, to me, become more self-esteem issue shows. So people are on there who may have some self-esteem issues, and they're trying to establish a means for what they may want to, put into play and look for things for themselves. I I would then say, hey, that's something to really, really evaluate. Why are we as a culture being entertaining or entertaining those type of things, because they become something that in many instances is very influencing to young people, because now you know the young our younger generations And I'll give you an example. I won't show videos like this, but I can tell you about it, and then I think about what is the context um, of the outcome of a video. I don't know what happened. Like, and I'll say this very reference. We will see videos all the time, folks. We see videos, and we will see what happened, the pinpoint moment, because that's the quick, easy cut, paste. This is what happened. You've seen the actual major event, but we don't see what happened prior. We don't see what happened after. That's the way most news cycles go. When a news reports something, it is reporting the actual thing that is happening, right? That's part of getting the story, what happened. But we don't get the pre or the post. And so sometimes in watching videos and watching things, it can be somewhat misleading to us on what it is and how it operates and what we should be doing in reference to, participating or enjoying these things. So let me, in a big point, let's go to a point where we can kind of even discuss that. Um, so I seen this video, and in the video, during the video, there was two women. No, there were people in a car fighting. There were children in the car. Um, and by the time you see the video, it is obviously the person recording is the what do I call them? They are the lady who works at um, the lady who is working at uh, what is that? The clerk at the convenience store. So she is at that present moment, she's videotaping and she is yelling for the kids. The kids. There are two women like in between the car. There's a woman. I would need to say a woman looking masculine looking woman. Maybe she might have been um, identifying as a stud, or maybe a stud. She would have been identifying as a stud or a butch or whatever that is. How you see that? And she seemed like she wasn't really trying to stop these two women from fighting, but the two women were fighting, and I don't know, they were fighting. And then what I seen is I know I seen this, and it was crystal clear. The little girl was calling for her mama, trying to grab into the car to, be able to pull them, pull. I guess a mom, but there was no way these kids, because it was two. It was a girl that might have been like 11 or 12. Then it was another girl who, clearly the younger baby girl was like 7 or 8 or 9, somewhere in that age range. They were crying and hysterical, and the two women were fighting. Like one woman, I seen this clearly. The one lady was chomping her teeth into the lady's thigh, and you could see her yanking back the meat from her thigh. And I was saying, oh man, this is a very vicious fight. Eventually, the police came, and this was interesting. The police was there. Other people, they pulled them apart, got them out, and they arrested the lady I seen who was doing the chomping. The police was handcuffing her. The other lady wasn't so much getting arrested. By this time the stud looking woman was with the woman who was getting beat up. Um, Someone was, trying to figure out where the kids was gonna go. They were saying, get the babies, we'll take them. Because the mom obviously was about to go to jail. Um, but then I thought of the first thing that popped in my mind was that what was really what could have caused this, and and why 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 do we not sometimes have the skill to be able to some point, the self-control to be able to communicate and discuss, or even walk away from certain things? And I think because we are being socially constructed not to in our society. So I'm just thinking that like they obviously were all in the car together. So you're all in the car together, and then you get into this severe fight. And then I say, well, you get into this severe fight. How what is happening that they're in such this severe fight, and what is going to be the outcome of this severe this fight that they're in with each other, and who and what can resolve this issue. And as I realized that nothing was going to resolve it, because maybe both people thought, as we finalized how people come to therapy, both people believe they're right. If there's no one there to mediate, to kind of say, hey, this kind of works like this, maybe we shouldn't do this way, then people will say they're justified in everything that they do, how they do things, or what they're going to do. Then the other thing I thought about was, in watching this was, hey, where I wonder where are those two girls' fathers at? Not to say that this couldn't happen with fathers being in the car or what have you, but these kids are at the right this moment. If that was the mother who did the attacking, I don't know what was the relationship to the other two women that were there, the kids, and what was going to happen to those kids, because the fight occurred right in front of the children. If these women are involved with each other in any kind of way, maybe romantic or something that becomes a domestic violence. That then becomes a charge. I mean, most people don't think about this when they get violent in front of children. That children seeing some type of violence or domestic violence then put you in jeopardy of having your kids taken away and go to CPS, Children Protective Services, or whatever agency it is in people's community. And when I think about that, the one thing that comes to my mind is, was that worth it? That's the first thing I think about. Is it even really worth it to risk, at some point having your kids taken away from you, or losing your kids, or trying to figure out how your kids gonna make it without you for the time, whatever, if you go to jail. I mean, first off, in this day and time, I think about people going to jail and what happens when you go to jail, and how going to jail what it can do to your life, your livelihood, how you live, what happens to you, all those kind of things. So that is a big thing to really process and think about. Um, then I thought to myself, well, I know that the one woman who did something to run over. She ran instead of breaking them up when they was in the car. I seen her get out and she ran somewhere, and then she didn't come back. And then she didn't seem like she really wanted to get involved with the fight until it was completely over. And I thought to myself, why? Why would you not want to get in? Why would you? Why? I try to figure this in my mind, and I know that very often getting involved in fights or getting involved with people who may be fighting may not be the best thing to do, because what you're looking at is putting yourself to be involved in a fight that could lead to you being involved in an incident that you had nothing to do with. And I definitely understand that. I can understand the consciousness of someone saying, "Hey, I'm not going to get into a fight. I'm not going to break up a fight. I'm not going to stop." But at some point, I don't think sometimes you have to break up a fight or stop a fight. I think that there's a way that if you have relationships with both people, you can do something to make cooler heads prevail. But that's just my mindset. There's a way for cooler heads to prevail, for us to find a means to be able to um, change the trajectory of this incident, to at some point put ourselves, or at some point be able to say, hey, this can be different. We should make this a little bit different. I want to find a way to de-escalate the situation, I want to look for a way to say, hey, I will help out without getting involved. I will. I mean, there are so many things I think that we can use based on our friendship or our relationship with the people who are involved in a conflict. Now, that's only if you are, sometimes. And someone will say, well, if I'm not friends with that person, why would I care if they got in a fight with another person or this, that, and the other? I definitely understand that. I definitely can see that and have some idea about that. But I also, at some point, will say, in some sense, to that is one of the reasons why is because are you interested in people being in violence, and violence for no reason? Listen, I noticed, and I've seen multiple times, and based on my experience of working in some of the environments I've worked in, and some of the places I've worked, of seeing people who um, will say they want to uh, not be involved with violence. Are they will get into a situation to protect, and I find out a lot of times it's just to protect their their pride. And we all know that one of the things that is the opposite of pride is shame. And so pride and shame goes counter with each other. So the pride will make them jump and say, oh, and especially when other people they know are going to hold them back. Again, you see this very often on these reality shows. As I was saying, I think there was a young lady that I seen. I don't even remember her name, but she ended up talking about how she was going to fight this girl, this and that, and she ended up having her tooth knocked out, and some other things done to done to her that was somewhat severe, right? And so you as you look at it, and people may laugh at it and think it's funny and enjoy it. You think about it and say that, hey, when did stuff like that become okay? So I know, well, first thing that, well, you talk all that smack, and then you had to deal with what the consequences is. And sometimes it's not about dealing with the consequences. Sometimes it's dealing with the fact that you thought you had a protection. You thought you had a safety net. So like you're on a show, on one of these reality shows, you believe, oh, that I can say and do what I want to do, and if the person does or say something to me, it doesn't matter because the security of the people will protect me and they will stop us and break us up because they won't let. But I found that what I'm finding and what I'm seeing from this network is that they are setting the people up and actually being almost worse than the WWE and UFC. So they're setting people up, letting people talk the talk, smack the smack. People are going to get involved in the fight, so what have you. And then it turn around. Then they turn around, and the next thing they know, that they are in a major fight, and they can't stop the fight because the person that they're in the fight with is is beating their behind. And they thought that there was going to be someone to come and stop the fight and say, "Oh no, this fight's not supposed to happen like this. We're going to do something different." So it's a big. I mean, that's one of the major things that sometimes we have to look at, and we can look at and make a comparison of how serious those kind of things are happening. Um, I know, and I also have noticed that this is also setting the tone for the construction of how people are reacting to incidents and I'm only saying that because I've been working in environments with young people who are very look. Last year I spent and the year before that I spent working in high schools again. And in high schools where people were able to, as I say, bring their phones into the school, and then the way they got to get around the phone thing is bringing an iPad, saying it was for academics, but then you catch them watching Baddie Girls or something, well, another one of these shows, and you realize that they are now learning to do that behavior. This, with that whole thing that they're doing, is something they learn from watching the TV or watching the shows. They're watching the shows. They're doing those behaviors on the shows, and it's nothing you can really do about it because this is where they're learning that. They're learning that from that environment, and they're practicing that without any issues or concerns. And then then you come back and try to figure out, what can we do about it? And a lot of times we can't do anything about it because it's being so conditionalized. And I'm saying that because I did, in the last 2 years, I did a lot of interventions with young people where we decided that we was going to try to intervene on incidents that happened, talk to them beforehand. They would come, they would talk, they would agree that this wasn't the right thing. And what would happen? They would still end up. And I don't know if it was because they would have somebody put the battery in their back, or they would, decide that they're going to do those kind of things that they want to, and that's how they rolling, or that's what they doing, that's how they getting it in. But I know that in many instances, I've seen a lot of young people end up being hurt, getting hurt, and things like that because they could not just say, "Hey, I'm going to leave this alone and let this be." They had to get involved. They had to do things, and let other people motivate them to get into something that they really didn't want to. They the pride thing that they want. And then after they got beat, it was shame, and they, what happened to, um, what happened, and that's one of the things that we really can see in what's happening. Um, so I was going to today really begin to talk about and look at some type of some of the models and some of the models, um, different type of models that we use when we're working as therapists, and how those models can be, easily used and integrated into our everyday life. I think even in the next week, I think I'm going to take some questions. Now, here's a great thing I'm going to do. I'm going to take some actual questions, looking at them based on um, case studies, and then I'm going to kind of try to break those down for you. Break down, you know, how I would as a therapist, and I hope that some other associates and colleagues come, so we can do this case conceptual thing of different kind of cases, and hopefully in the idea that in the future of the show that we'd have people that come on to maybe bring some things that they may be facing or something they might be dealing with that they would love to know how to handle, and how to, and to maybe even get, I won't say some advice, but maybe get some skills. And again, that is something that, a lot of people may say, hey, well, you sure you want to be doing that, and whatever, but it's not. Skills is educational. It would be just like having a workshop, a workshop that would help people be able to get in and facilitate and get involved with different kinds of things that can happen on a day to day. Um, I know that there are so many different types of theories that could be used. I was watching a show today And I realized, hold on one second, I'm not sure. Hold on one second, folks. All right, so that's good. So I was just I was trying to look for this actual thing, but I'm not actually finding it to be able to kind of like present some of it to us tonight. But I know that is uh, there is so much content to kind of even present in this arena. Um, let me see. So as I'm looking for this right at this moment, I'm thinking to myself, what can help us? How one of the things I think about is, what is the thing that could help us in many instances be able to, you know, avoid some of this and help us get to a place where we could change that idea. And I think a big part of it is a new thing that's coming up, and people don't. A lot of people don't like the term, don't like to bring it up. They don't like to really discuss it. They don't even like to acknowledge that it has some realistic, that it even has some, that it has some ideas. But I personally definitely believe that it does, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about it tonight. Um, as I preferenced and started this conversation on what's some of the things that we can do. What can people do to help them get out of this construction that has happened by reconstructing something else? And one of the things that we can reconstruct into our life, as I would like to say, is emotional intelligence. Um, and when we sometimes look for things in emotional intelligence, it can it sometimes can be hard because we could say, well, I don't, I don't even know what emotional intelligence is. I never even heard of that. I don't even know how that works, and how does that work for me, and what does it look like? Um, and so I'm hoping to be able to kind of share that with you guys today, in a sense. Just waiting to see if I can get this pulled up so we can look at it. I think it's processing. And I can then kind of break this down a little bit in a way, in a little time, in the time we have. Um, just, but technology is always working in a strange way. It works and then it doesn't work, and it, it it plays, as I like to say, it plays tricks on you, tricks on your mind. It tells you that it's here and it's not. Or it takes a little bit of time to get going. Oh, there we go. Yeah, here we go. It's here. All right, great. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this um, emotional intelligence and what does it really mean in some sense. So, Time Magazine once presented that one of the most important things that we have found out in this generation for us is emotional intelligence. And what does that mean and how does that play out? Um, so, understanding and kind of like getting a clear description of emotional intelligence. Let me just move this so, see, that's blocking that. Let me move something so make sure we can see everything. Everybody will be able to see somewhere. I'm gonna hide that for a minute. Hopefully that makes it maybe clear. Emotional intelligence defined. So emotional intelligence, as I said here, is the ability to recognize and understand our emotions. Now, as I talked about earlier, about people understanding their emotions. First, to understand our emotions, we must be in control of our emotions. It also talks about the idea of using this awareness to manage yourself and the relationships with others. Now, that sounds nice and easy and say, oh, I can manage myself. I know how to manage my emotions. I know how to do the things I need to do because one of the things that we always going to say is, I know how to do them. I know how to present them. I know how to do this and that because, quote unquote, um, because I'm an adult or I'm intelligent and I know how to do this. But a lot of times we don't because we let our emotions overrun what is really going on with us and how we kind of deal with it and process that. For example, and many people may not even know who this guy is, uh, John John Mack, Johnny Mack, emotional intelligence. He was a tennis player, John McEnroe, and he was known to like always get into a real during tennis, getting very upset. I mean, I'm trying to think of someone today that would. I mean, the only I can't. I think about someone today's society that people might even know who always not in control. I mean, I think about people they would say like Dennis Rodman might have been like that, but you never knew if Dennis Rodman was like that for real because his what he would do. Oh, uh, what's this boy name? The football player, definitely, it's definitely a football player who was recently like that. Uh, I can't think of his name. I can't think of these guys' names, but there are people who showed that they almost sometimes didn't show that they had any emotional intelligence. Aristotle says that anybody can become angry. It is easy, but to be angry with the right person and to the right degree and at the right time and for the right purpose in the right way is not within everyone's power and is and so I want you to think about this. This goes to talk about the idea of we do what we want to do at certain times in certain ways with certain people. That means at some point we have a control, but we decide that we're not going to do it. Like we could easily say that I'm going to listen to the teacher in the school to give me instructions, but because I made a decision that I have no respect for this teacher, I don't care about authority. I do what I want to do how I want to. You at different places. In an example, I have personally seen people speak to one person one way and another person and who does the same identical thing in the same disposition differently and then a different way. So you start processing and thinking about how that operates and works out can be very interesting. Um, oh no, don't tell me this. Oh no. See, folks, this is what happens when you have something that that's what happens. Sometimes you try to have these things and they just don't work out the way you want them to work out. All right, so let me just skip right to the part I really wanted to present to you guys. All right, the first part of emotional intelligence starts with one of the most important things I think is self-awareness. And when we really process the idea of self-awareness, it is what I would call the ability to accurately perceive our own emotions. And I ask you to ask yourself, do you believe that you have the ability to accurately perceive your own emotions? Do you, and what this means in many times is I think that for you to be able to do that is to think about what it is that's getting you upset, be able to talk to yourself about it and being able to to really you know have a good understanding of why it's getting you upset, and that a lot of times we don't have that ability. Being able to stay away from your emotions, think about what it is as they happen, getting you upset, as they happen. And when you sometimes see this, is that's why some people say, I'm not going to go somewhere, I'm not going to do, family members say, I'm not going to the family reunion because I ain't going to be able to control myself if I see so and so. I'm not doing this because if I do those things. And then the other thing is being able to keep on top of how you tend or respond to specific situations and people. And we know and we can be very clear that I laugh of it because I can think of so many cases and so many moments where there are people who are dealing and trying to process that, and that can be very difficult and cumbersome to do so. So that's something I definitely I put in play to think about. Um, Being able to be self aware is one of the key parts of emotional intelligence. To be able to improve, in some things of improving self awareness is knowledge of themselves. So see yourself for who you are. What do you think and feel? Watch your emotions like a hawk. Even psychological signs like um, practicing defense mechanisms. You start doing being defensive and practicing the defense mechanisms when things are happening. Being able to track and backtrack your emotions in difficult conversations or meetings. And I mean, I'm thinking of this so much of working with families, working with couples, working sometimes with individuals is somewhat a little bit more difficult for them to really be able to track and backtrack emotions in different in these conversations they're having. Learning their tendencies in emotional arousing situations. What are the things that will get you aroused? And be able to move to that place of uncomfortableness and not being able to be in control. Um, Using pairing, shared, um, peers or supervisors, um, and then own your actions. And then with this means some accountability, responsibility. Take responsibility for what you say and do. And that becomes hard. And I know how hard it can become for people because sometimes they feel like they haven't did or said anything wrong. They are comfortable and they haven't really, proceeded for themselves and what it should really be. So that becomes a big factor in that. Um, the being able to have the awareness of self management, the self management, the being able to use your awareness of your emotions to stay flexible and positive during your behavior, and that can be difficult. That can be hard for someone to do. Managing your emotions, uh, reactions to all situations and people. I would almost begin to say, I watch a lot of, what do I say? I like to watch a lot of Congress, a lot of stuff in the Congress, Senate hearings, and just political school board meetings and those things. And what you're seeing now is, and it seems like what you're beginning to start seeing is there was a time when everything that was handled was under control and it was managed. And now you're seeing things, not people saying exactly how they feel, what they feel, how they feel, without any self-management, without any things to cause any problems or any issues for them. So that's something that we start thinking about how to really self-manage ourselves. I love this idea because all the time I'm saying, hey, what are our triggers? Triggers come. The bigger other part of, is it a trigger to me sometimes, or is it a tipping point? Because triggers can just continue to pound at you, but when you get to a tipping point in some of your emotions, there's no more control, I think, because you're at the tipping point of it. Um, you know, what are the triggers that's making you want to blow your emotion gasket? And that becomes when we start looking at the tipping point of things in your emotions. What are some of those things you should think about, Jack? So emotional red flags and breakdown. Um, These are some very interesting ones, and I just want to point them out. One of the first ones, I want to go to is withdrawing isolation is a big one that people believe that helps because it is also a false positive because people believe that if I withdraw and I isolate, well, then that means that I'm being in control of myself but really what it's doing is allowing you to go somewhere and then build up and get more, almost like the Incredible Hulk. Like I'm gonna become the Incredible Hulk, and what I'm going to do and how this is going to operate. Looking at using sarcasm and inappropriate humor. That is, again, turns into one of the defense mechanisms that people are using, and it seems as if, hey, I'm just joking, I'm just playing, but you're not. They're not just playing. They're not just joking. That's the way for them to be able to you know send that kind of red flag to you. Email, letter bombs, anything that has a bomb on the end of it can be somewhat dangerous. You start thinking about holding grudges, getting even. We see a whole bunch of that right now in the country. I mean, administration holding grudges and getting even for people who, when they wasn't in power, and doing those kind of things. Passive aggressive behavior, um, door slamming, and I would not say just door slamming, but when you even in the involvement of things, people kind of like um, doing doing those passive aggressive kind of things, um, like, oh, let me give you something, but not really giving it to you, and then anger tirades. That is the kind of thing that where the person is angry all the time and very angry, and people not understanding. These are some of the things that you look for and look at. Um, some of the, becoming socially aware, and being able to to accurately pick up the emotions in other people. That is something that is a hella scale to pick up. It avoids you from having to get involved with certain things or get caught up in certain things. Understanding what is really going on. I'll give you a great example of this. It was an incident that happened not recently to me, where not to me, but in a situation where there was something on social media involving an organization I was involved with, and people were in uproar about it because they only seen the one little clip of what. And I talked about this earlier. When people see the spotlight clip of something, they respond to it. It is an instant, something to see, and they instantly respond, and it becomes something that's important. The problem is, if you don't know the whole scenario situation, you will react to something and then be wrong. We see this happening all the time when it comes to interactions of people of authority and people of non-authority. People of authority sometimes react without seeing the whole picture, just based on maybe their bias or their power differential with you. But in this case, in the case that I'm talking about, there was something shown and people got up in arms about it, and only to find out that what occurred was not what you thought you seen. It wasn't any of what the person did. The person was there was this honorary celebration. Now I use it. That's the best example I get. Honorary celebration where there was young people representing organizations. They didn't belong to the organization, but they were representing the organizations. But the organization I belong to only seen them representing our organization, and it was like, oh, this guy's doing something. What he's doing? Until people investigated and kept investigating, kept having a big deal, and found out that there was a whole school activity. That all those organizations in this larger organization, and all the kids in the school was representing different organizations in the exact same way. And that is a big part of being able to understand what is really going on before you are reacting, before you are getting to anger, getting to disgusting, becoming judgmental, or moving to a place. Really understand what's going on, because if people would have knew from the beginning, and again they look foolish, but they then justified their foolishness, being foolish by saying, "Oh, but this is what's going on, and we need to know." No, you should wait and make sure you find out what's happening before you jump to conclusions. And then the last one talks kind of like understanding what other people are thinking and feeling, even if it don't feel the same way. So if you're not, and that again, a social awareness of how to really understand, society has a different way to operate than you, even though you're in the society, and you need to understand that your way is not the only way, and your way may be the similar to them, but you just start perceiving it that way. It's not until you're able to kind of evaluate, look into it, and to be able to investigate and be able to see. So it's a great part of that. I want to bring this up because this is a great quote about social awareness requires empathy. One of the big things I realized that many people believe they have empathy, but they really have sympathy. The sympathy gives you to be at a power differential. Because with sympathy, you feel sorry for them. Like I don't really know how you feel, but I feel sorry for you. I feel sorry that you're going through this and that. And when people can empathize, it's a little bit different because they can feel and identify with the person that's going through this situation. So in this case, empathy is the ability to see the world through another point of view and to identify the understanding another situation's Um, another situation. In this case, as you see, as the picture shows, the person with an arrow in his butt, and other person with an arrow in their butt saying, "I know exactly how you feel," because we have this kindred idea of what happened. Now, the only thing I want to say sometime about empathy is, and to be clear, is that don't get so consumed with saying that this happened to this person and this happened to me, that it's the same thing, because it's not. I can empathize with you and understand some of it, but that doesn't mean we had the same experience, because we're not the same people and we look at things in a different way, and even how they may have occurred might have been different. So there is this a small. I don't want just to feel like empathy automatically makes me connected to somebody and they having the same thing I went through. Some of the ways to improve social awareness. Yeah, listen, spend time observing, asking, listening. As a therapist, probably the one of the key things you need to be able to, not as a mentor, as an educator and a therapist. I won't just say as a therapist, as all of those things. This is something you have to spend a lot of time if you're going to be successful in those three: mentoring, educating, or being a therapist. Observing, asking, and listening. So you're observing, you're asking, and then you're going to listen to what you ask somebody about so you can have a full understanding. Having a very good opportunity to maintain some kind of eye contact. Because can you imagine talking to someone? And I know in some cultures, eye contact is prohibited, but in the Western culture we live in, if a person doesn't give eye contact to you, there is again, we're looking at a differential of power. We're looking at honesty, dishonesty. We're looking at, is this person even respecting me when I'm conversating and talking to them? So like as a therapist, I am never having a conversation with a family, a couple, whatever, and not looking them in the face and not paying attention to them, and not students want to talk to them about something. I'm not just with my head down saying, "Oh yeah, what you got to talk about?" Because that doesn't set an opportunity to really build that kind of joint and bond that you want with someone. Giving this the speaker your full attention is exactly what I was just saying about the main eye contact. Um, Try on their shoes. This is probably one of the topics and comments that I always um, uh, try to facilitate in therapy with couples and families. That, hey, can you look at this and put yourself in their shoes about this situation? Because if you can, that might give you a better understanding of why they're feeling this way and why it's happening and the things are occurring the way they're happening. Um, Suspend your judgment. Judgment is hard because it is something that we naturally do, but sometimes we should just hold on our judgment, wait, and give people the benefit of the doubt in what we're going to do. Read body language is important. Um, you know, one thing you can kind of tell if someone is wanting to talk or not wanting to talk, or what's going. I'm telling you this because on a day-to-day basis, if it's with students in the schools that I work at, families and families and couples that I work with, I have to use these skills. And these skills are mandated for me to be able to master, or I would not be able to be as successful or be able to really get down to the things you need to get down. And then being able to, understand or be able to uh, understand people's emotion and speak tone in their speech tone. Um, you, I'm only laughing because it, on a day to day basis, I have to do this uh, uh, decipher of, of emotions based on how people are speaking to me, how they're talking. If the day they might be coming talking like a baby, and is that what does that mean for them to talk like a baby today? What does it mean for them to be short and not want to talk. What does that mean? I have to kind of evaluate and process that. And that's one of the big things that sometimes you have to do in improving your social awareness. So these are some things. And when you look at these emotions, you're thinking about emotions. Is the person excited? Is they scared, angry, sad, happy? And you then begin to kind of figure those things out in many instances. Looking at relationship management, and this is a really big one, because we don't live in this world on an island by ourselves. We have relationships. We must be able to use awareness of our emotions and the emotions of others to manage the interactions successfully. And what does that mean? That sometimes I'm gonna tell you honestly, sometimes what it means is that you have to be a bigger person. Sometimes you can't go tit for tat. Sometimes it means that you don't have to be petty. Sometimes it don't mean that you have to then acknowledge that, oh, I'm always being the bigger person, or I got to be the adult in the situation. Because sometimes if you're able to do that, you might be able to get to the place. Because again, you don't, if you're able to do it because you don't know the person that you're in a relationship with. Are they able to do it? And they may need you to come to that position to be able to present that to be able to find out how to get to that position. So don't miss that out. Ensuring clear communication and effective handling of conflict. Hey, listen, let me say this. Communication between many people is really never clear. People communicate what they want to communicate, and not very often are in our communication, we are ensuring the clear communication. And I'm going to tell you why. I tell you by my own relationships. It is difficult. It is hard. It is not as, this writing this down on the paper saying, oh yeah, you should be ensuring clear communication and effective handling of conflict. Well, that sounds good, but it's a process. You have to work. And guess what? You're probably not thinking about working on that. If you're thinking about the bills you got to pay, what work you got to do, with how you're going to take care of the boss telling you to do this at work, or how the kids might be getting on your nerves, how your partner seems like unconsiderate about what you have to do and how you got. So you're not going to spend time. You're not going to spend that time, even though we can't and need to try to have that clear communication, because it might end up being the way to handle a conflict and it be effective. It might help the situation. So, these are some things just to process and kind of look at. When we're looking to improving relationship management, one of the big things of this is being able to have a high trusting relationship. But first, you have to be a trusting person. You got to be able to be willing to trust to get to trusting. I have a good friend. He always say, "Don't trust, try." And I really believe that, because how can you trust someone if you haven't tried them? You have to get to a point that you give them the ability for you both to be able to have trust for one another. So that's a big part of getting to that high trust relationship. Trying to discover the role emotions are playing in your interaction with others. There is some stuff that we bring into our relationships that then set us into this. And as I read this, try to discover what roles emotions are playing in your interaction with others. And most of the time, I think about how people we are involved with can trigger certain things based on how we feel those things operate in the world for us. If we somehow have some insecurities, person we may be involved with may build on that insecurity all the time. It may even make us feel like that insecure person. So then we are now having a problem in that relationship, and how our emotions show up. And the next one said, if you sense tension are other emotions, reactions in a person's body language or speak, ask questions to seek understanding. This is probably one of the key things that you can ask someone in any kind of interaction, so you can have a full understanding. Listen, I don't know if you watch TV shows. I think about this how I think about this movie when I think about it. It is the best example. What's the movie? I see dead people. Who? It was filmed in Philadelphia. Bruce Willis was the therapist. The Sixth Sense. The Sixth Sense. Six. The if you sense. Sixth sense. If you sense tension in other people, emotional, other emotional reactions in a person's body language or speak, ask questions, sequence. In the opening scene, the beginning scene of The Sixth Sense, there's a student, I guess a client of Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis, who breaks into his house and is like, and Bruce Willis asks him a couple questions. And the way that Bruce Willis does this, it looks for understanding of what the client, whether then the client shoots him, and it goes to that. But this is a perfect example of being able to ask those questions to get an understanding of what you're dealing with and how you're dealing with it. Because I think if you get the opportunity to ask that person that question, it makes them have to stop. Because at that moment, if they're at a height, if they're at a temper, they're at an anger, it gives them an opportunity to stop and think about what they're doing and why they're doing it. Because they have to answer your question. They have to. They don't have to, but they more likely their mind will, unless they're already past the tipping point, then that might not even work. But if you're getting to this point of being able to really look at people's body language, their speech, and ask the questions to understand what's going on with them, you may be able to find a better relationship in that management, in that management of that relationship. Again, be quick to settle disputes, differences of opinions, and misunderstandings. This says do not let things linger. Yeah, you know how people say, I'll talk to her next week. I'll talk to her next time. No, talk to him now. Talk to him now. Because you know how many things happen between the time that you said I was going to talk to them, how many other people you talk to, how many other situations come, and then when you come to speak to the person about the issue, they may have even forgot and left it alone, but you have built this giant bat with barbed wire and razor blades, tape, sticker birds, all this stuff in that bat that you're ready to come and dispute with them with. But you build it up when initially all you had was a little switch that you came to dispute with. So now you can come, dispute differences in opinions and understanding quickly. Be quick to kind of as fast as possible, that it doesn't build up. And because then you don't have to get other people involved when you're dealing with something that involves that one person. So that's something to really think about. All right, so here's what does emotional intelligence have to do with emotional competency, personal competency, EC. So when we look at this, we're looking at self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management, and what we see and what we do, and how those things operate. We can look at self-awareness with the ability to accurately perceive others, our own emotions, stay aware of our emotions as they happen, keep on top of how you tend to respond to specific situations and people. Then self-management, the ability to use awareness of your emotions to stay flexible and positively direct your behavior Managing your emotions, reaction to all situations and people. Let's go down to social awareness, the ability to actually pick up on emotions of other people, understand what is really going on, understand what other people are thinking and feeling, even if you don't feel the same way. And then relationship management, the ability to use awareness in your emotions and emotions of others to manage interactions successfully, and then ensure clear communication and effective handling of conflict. So here you look in and kind of look at these key points for the four areas of emotional intelligence. When we look at this in a higher level, how does emotional intelligence have to do with EC, individually organizing performances, individual performances, mostly in emotional intelligence, is equal to organizational emotions, then leads up to organizational performance. So what this says is in working, in your work ability, in the environment that you work in any setting you're in, your emotional intelligence will add to your individual performance. So how would it work for you to be successful on your evaluations or your assignments, individual work? But also it is interchangeable with the organizational engagement. So if you can't have emotional intelligence, you will not be able to operate emotionally in the engagement in your organization. That then affects how your organization performs. Then your organizational performance, your individual performance, but then, as I would like to say, affects the what we care about, most people care about the most, the dollar bill. Successful workers, successful organizations collect successful money. That's just the way I have seen it to work. Um, some of the things and how to build that in a work environment. We talked about this: trust, motivation, change, teamwork, execution. These are some of the true organizational engagement vital signs that you need to be able. And let's look at, if you look at this diagram here, um, you look at this diagram, it's very clear that you see trust being in the middle. And when trust establishes that people have a sense of safety and is sure to share and go beyond their comfort zone. So trust is the center of what we will be able to do and how we operate. If we have that trust, we will work in a certain way. It moves over to motivation. Motivation then becomes people feel energized and communicated to doing and committed to doing more than the minimum. So if in that case, when we had it, and I want to relate this to you, and we're talking about business. This is, they're kind of talking about business, but I want to relate this to how it operates in a relationship you would have in a family or with another person. So if there is a trust there, we are more motivated to do things, and commit to more than the minimum in that relationship or in that family. We know that trust is committed there. Change. We then become, this says, institutions are adaptable and innovative. So the idea of someone saying, hey, I know that you want to do this, but would you do it? If trust is there within the internet, like they say on this, business is there, but if it's there, it definitely will occur. Teamwork, people collaborating and communication to take on challenges. I think that this is a great example of how many couples and families should face problems that they face in teamwork. Most of the time, the way we deal with problems, that we take the problems and they become the barrier between us instead of us working together to break the problem down. We take apart, and then last part is execution. Um, Hold on. Let's see something. Right. So let's see. So execution. Let me make this different. Execution. Individuals are both focused and accountable. So the execution of a relationship, both people will be uh, uh, focused on what needs to be done, and then they will be accountable for what happens in this relationship. So looking at those, again, if we took these organizational engagements, but I say looking at them in reference to how we could use them in relationship, having that trust in the relationship leads to being able to use the motivation to provide and provide more than and being committed to just doing more than just the minimum needed in the relationship, because I have a trust that it's not doing it in vain. The ability to be interested in being adaptable and innovative to change and things that may make the relationship better. Looking at how in this trust, I trust the partner that I'm working with, so we can work through things and communicate to take on challenges that we will face as a couple, working through them, and then being able to um, execute our relationship and both focus and accountability for what is going on. Now, I know I'm taking that and taking this one thing and using it for, but I think that this is important that you can use these things directly for relationships and how we have our relationships. Let me skip over that. So I'm and look at this this final thought of what it is. If your emotional abilities aren't in hand, if you don't have self-awareness, if you are not able to manage your distressing emotions, if you can't be empathetic and have effective relationships, then no matter how smart you are, you are not going to get very far. Now, I'm going to switch this to say, not get very far. You won't have a successful relationship. You won't get far in relationships. You will not be able to have an ability to manage your family or be in family in the same way. So, thinking about this and being able to utilize this as emotional abilities is a big part of being having successful relationships. But as I go back to the beginning of our conversation, when we look at when we really look at some of the social constructed models that we have that infiltrate into who we are and what we are every day, um, to be emotionally intelligent is not a part of it. It doesn't play into that. It really just says, think about yourself, think about how you feel. Almost every time I think about that, is I think about the dream girls. What about what I want? And it's like, don't. It's not about you. It's about us as a family. But that doesn't happen because we are told to only think about what we want. And so it has to be, because if we don't, you're going to be taken advantage of. People are not going to do this and you're not going to do that, and these things are going to happen. You end up finding yourself in such conflictual situations and relationships that you really don't know how to get out of. So I would say that this is just a small overview presentation tonight of emotional intelligence. These are the kind of things that I would like to share with people on this Black Marriage and Family with Dr. Ron, um, because I'm trying to battle. Well, for me, to be honest, I watch social media just like everybody else. I look at posts. I look at Instagram. I look at video. I probably watch more videos than anything else because I'm really looking for things to evaluate. And as I look at them, I'm saying that, hey, these things are very influential. And I see that with the young people I work with, some of the families I come in contact with, these things have a high influential rate on them. And there is nothing to compete against. There's nothing to challenge it. And so what I am making a mission is I'm going to make content that's going to challenge. I'm going to hopefully get my friends, colleagues in here to help me, challenge some of what we consider the norm for Black marriage and family, um, to debunk some of it because it's not the norm. I think that we look at a lot of the negative and no one highlights a lot of the positive. We have tons of very successful. Listen, I just watched some. I was riding with my dad in the car and he had a obituary of a guy who died just recently. He died. He had his funeral this weekend. The man was married 57 years. Had 3 kids. 57 years this guy lived. He was the last person alive. Both parents had died. All his siblings, but he was the youngest. And his wife was dead. And he was still here, looking after his kids and giving them that power support that they needed until he passed away. And I thought to myself is, how often do we not see that kind of imagery, of a father who lost all his family, the mother was gone, but he was still here being the patriarch of his family. And I know the patriarch word can become spooky, but let's don't let people, again, this is the whole point I'm making. Patriarchy has become a bad word, but not if we use the words and show the positive um, content of patriarchy and how it operates. This man, to me, represented what patriarchy means, in the idea that he raised his family, took care of his family, had a successful marriage, 57 years of a marriage till his wife died. And then, he stayed and continued to take care and make sure his kids, who all 3 of the kids were successful, who also didn't have family, kids. And you're saying this, here's an example of what one people view patriarchy as this oppressive means, and I've used it in the terms of it being oppressive because that is how it has been established in some instances. But that's the problem. Words don't have only one meaning or one description. We have to show the other description to it because there is a positive view of patriarchy, and that was it with this brother. Matter of fact, I just thought of his name, brother Alan A. King, Alan L. King, because I remember in the thing it had KLA. Some kind love everyone. I think kind keep loving everyone. See, this is why these little things work. So his initials was ALK, and he had this thing, keep loving everyone. Keep loving everyone was his thing to say. Keep loving everyone, and that was also his initials reversed. And so when you look at something like that and you weigh that, here's an example of what I mean when this is what drawed me to even bring this and talk about what was the kind of emotional intelligence you think this man had to be able to present that and provide that and be able to provide that kind of life that he had and he lived for those years. And again, that's only I got that little bit of stuff from an obituary. I didn't know the man. My dad knew him, but I didn't know the man. But I was able to pull that from that obituary, and I found it so profound that he was still here living after everybody, his whole family, wife, siblings, mother, everyone was gone, and he was only here with his children as the patriarch to provide for them and until his death. And so these are the kind of things that I think that we have lost and continue to be attacked against, that I have committed to using this platform to bring and show the solution base, the positive, and that there is that for us as Black people. even despite that there may be this idea that it's not. And with that being said, I want to thanks anybody who watched and joined. I know that it was, for me, it's hard. This is not my way to do it, me by myself, doing a presentation to nobody. Well, I don't say nobody, but I'm an interactive person. I like to be engaged with people. I like to be able to know that people are there, that I'm talking to them, that I can understand their feedback. They have questions, but we're gonna get there. This is only our second show. We're gonna get back to the level. And again, I say to any people out there, we still have our fatherhood think tank show. So definitely, you definitely can come and join us on Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock on a Facebook page or a YouTube page, or on my own page to see the Fatherhood Think Tank. We also have this show, Black Marriage and Family, that is Thursday nights at 7 o'clock. In between that is Wednesday night. You can always catch us in the Colored Only Cafe on the GoPro Radio Network, where myself, Tylan Xavier Washington, filmmaker, and a host of other Black thought leaders are having interesting conversations that are thought provoking for our Black community. Colored Only Cafe on Wednesday night. So as you can see, I'm busy. Tuesday night, Fatherhood Think Tank with all the fathers from the Fatherhood Think Tank. Wednesday night, Colored Only Cafe, and Thursday night, where I do this show. And hopefully soon I will get my colleagues to commit to coming back, but hopefully they'll come back, and then we can really get some real dialogue going. Again, I'm planning on having a guest. Again, I told you earlier I'm going to have a guest. She wrote a very good book. I'm not going to say the name of any of that because I want to do correct, clear advertising so people don't come back next week and say, I thought you were going to do the book. I want to make sure and confirm her, get it here. But her book is idea to the example of some of literature that I'm talking about that I want people to read for our people to show that there is something that can be done in the positive, even in something that might be considered a negative. So with that being said, join me here next week. Mentor, educator, therapist platform for our shows that are coming up back next week. If you have concerns, issues, questions, you can drop a line on either YouTube page, on the Facebook pages. I will get those messages and I'll respond back. You have show ideas, I welcome them too. Other than that, folks, thank you for joining me tonight. If you're watching the replay, I know you can just listen to it in your car. I know my voice is not the greatest sweet voice that you want to hear, but listen, I do try to make it enjoyable and things that will be beneficial to you. Without that being said, see y'all here back next week on Black Marriage and Family, here on the Mentor, Educator, and Therapist Network. Good night.